investors when it comes on to raising private money, right? And a lot of you might hear double-digit returns and think that's the perfect way to pitch. But guess what? There's so many ways to pitch. You can add your own flavor to it to pitch. There's no rule in terms of this is the only way that you can pitch. Like it isn't, right? But what I want to share with you guys first, let me even share my screen. Hopefully this works. All right. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I want to share this with you in terms of, oops, stop playing with me. Okay. Before we pitch to anyone, I want everyone to understand that, why is my hand raised? Okay, that's a whole different thing. Okay. And you guys can pitch to anyone to when raising money, because what you have to understand, anybody can be a private money lender. They do not have to be in the real estate space. And here's the sweet thing. You need people who are not in the real estate space. Those are the people that you need who are sitting on funds, maybe in their savings, a HELOC or retirement, but they don't know anything about real estate. And you come in as an expert. Now, you might hear me saying, oh, expert, Kalisha, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm a newbie. I've never done this before. You're an expert. You know something about real estate. You're here. You're building your knowledge about understanding the process of being a private money lender. Like, you might think what I'm saying now, like, Kalisha, like, yeah, we all know that anyone can be a private money lender. Guys, truly, if you fully understand that, when you go into certain rooms, you will pitch when you introduce yourself, and it becomes so natural because in your head, anybody can be a private money lender. Before I even go deeper into it, who has ever used the pitch? Hey, do you want, raise your hand if you go in and you're like, hey, do you want to be a PML? Raise your hand if you've ever done that. Just go to someone and be like, hey, do you want to be a PML? No? Okay, that's good. That's a good sign. That's good. But you do have persons go and pitch, hey, do you want to be a PML? And the person's like, huh? What is that? And then we get so technical. Or do you want to be a private money lender? Like most persons with capital do not know what that is. We got to remember, like, when we're pitching, just forget that they don't know anything about real estate. That's the mindset you want to go into it. Whenever I go to events to raise money, I'm going to assume that no one in the room knows about real estate or knows about private money lending. And I'm coming in that room as an expert to let you know what are the benefits of private money. Now, this is a big thing. When it comes on to lenders, when you're raising private money, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and you reach out to persons and they're like, hey, I'm a private money lender, right? And then they start asking you, can you fill out an application? I need to run your credit score. We'll only loan 75% of LTV, or we need an appraisal. Like they start going through a checklist. And lo and behold, you find out that they are an institutional company. The goal is you want to find people who is an individual. So if I go to Bert, I want to go to Bert because truly Bert is sitting on some cash that we don't know, or Bert doesn't even know that he can lend. I want to have Bert become the bank. So a private money lender is an individual. So an individual, maybe this is a coworker, a family, a friend, someone you meet at a chamber of commerce, someone that you meet on the plane, at the airport, like in the library or at the coffee shop, or maybe you were at the Home Depot, like, or the supermarket, and you're making small conversation. That could be a private money lender. And I'm going to give you stories because you guys might be like, Kalisha, that's ridiculous. There's no way you can find people there. Like, I found private money lenders at the weirdest places. And that changed my mind to be like, anyone could be a private money lender. Your hard money lender will be the institution where they're lending majority of the funds, whether they're doing 75% or 80%, of the project cost. And then they would ask you for like origination points. A lot of hard money lenders are asking you for points up front. Traditionally, private money lenders, the individual, they don't ask you about origination points, origination fees and points up front because they're not operating as an institution. A hard money lender is a group of people, right? Like a fund manager who are using other people's money. They're lending out the money, and for the hard money lender to make money, they charge origination points, origination fees, and points up front. You want direct contact with the private money lender. Then you have your traditional lenders who are like who gives you like an FHA loan, a DSCR loan. Those are your traditional. And I wanted to differentiate this because when you guys are raising money online and you start using, are you a lender? Are you a private money lender? You are going to stumble upon a lot of these persons. And to differentiate that, you have to now ask more questions. Hey, are you an institution? Hey, do you require me to fill out an application? Hey, do you require an appraisal report? Hey, what is your standard process like? And when they start going through a checklist based on that, you can know they are working with an institution. And we all know why private money is good. Like, if you guys can just shoot it out, why is private money good? I know some, but you must know some. Like, feel free to unmute yourself and tell me, why do you think, like, why is private money so good? Why people talk about using other people's money? Like, throw out one thing. You guys will
They're
find
flexible.
They're flexible. There you go. There's no wrong answer here. Come on, we must know. We're here in a group that talks about raising private money. Why do you want to learn how to pitch to raise private money? Why?
No credit checks?
What do you say, Melanie?
No credit checks?
No credit checks. There you go.
Raise capital.
Wait, who is that? Who's that? I want to hear it.
Oh, raise capital.
To raise capital. Who else? Bert, you were gonna say something.
Less formal.
Less
formal.
Yeah. And
More personable when you're talking to those people.
There you go. And you're able to negotiate terms. And the one keyword I want to take out is what Arturo said, is that they are flexible. You're gonna find with hard money lenders, like if you tell them, hey, this is gonna be a fix and flip, I need a loan for 12 months. Perfect. Then they're gonna tell you, hey, the starting rate is 11%. That's the starting rate, 11% annualized. And then they'll be like, it varies because we need to look on the asset, your credit score, all that. Here's the beauty of it. You can find someone who is in tech, a software engineer, a nurse, a teacher that you could meet at a football game, and they're happy with maybe they're already getting 5% from a high yield savings account. And imagine you go to them and be like, hey, I can give you 8%. And they're so happy. You might be like, Kalisha, there's no way. Where are you finding those people? I literally went to an event, find a guy who always wanted to get into real estate. And because I opened my mouth and my pitch, he's like, oh my God, I'm getting 5% annualized from my high yield account. I'm like, oh, wow. What if I can get you 8% annualized? He was like, wait, what? I can get that? I'm like, yes. I haven't mentioned private money lender. I haven't mentioned anything else. It's just listening. So now that we covered the basics, we're going to go right into it. And we're going to talk about like your pitch. Now, the main thing when it comes on to your pitch is that you got to know your audience. Who are you pitching to? Which is why I mentioned nothing is wrong with saying double-digit returns, but you got to assess what type of environment am I in right now? Observe what is the age group of the people that I'm surrounded by? Are these like a bunch of people who are all real estate professionals? Do they seem like they know anything about real estate? For example, you may go to a real estate networking event That's okay. You can use the word PML. You can use the word private money lending because those people are familiar with those terms. But if you go to a non-real estate related event, you don't want to go around and sharing the word PML, private money lending. Oh, do you want to lend me money? No. You gotta be able to assess, where am I? What type of people am I talking to? When I go to a Chamber of Commerce event, I assess. Okay, this room has a lot of business professionals. Some is in tech, some is in IT, some is in finance, some is in sales. And I listen to them when they pitch. And most times in the room, I am the only person who is in real estate. So my thought is, okay, how am I going to introduce myself to these people? Because I can't use the word private money lending. I can't use the word PML. So here's an example. When it's my turn to introduce myself and I assess, I'm like, okay, these people don't know anything about real estate. They're all like regular 9-to-5 people. So my pitch is going to be like, hey, so Kalisha, what do you do? Oh, I am a real estate investor. And basically what I do is acquire residential rental properties across the US. And I partner with people like you who want to invest, but they don't have the time to. That's it. I put in the word basically. I don't sound like I'm saying a script. And I put in like as humans, we say the words I do it intentionally. So it doesn't seem as if I'm trying to memorize something. Here's another thing. I may go in and I may switch it up. Hey, so basically what I do is I buy properties, I turn them into rentals, and I partner with people like you who maybe you want tax write-offs or you want passive, I don't even use passive income, or you want an additional stream of income. So I partner with persons like you who want to get into real estate. And I stop. And when you're saying that, when you're giving that pitch, especially if you're surrounded by a group of people, you want to make eye contact with everyone in that group. So you don't want to stare on one person. You're staring on everyone within that group and maintaining eye contact. The reason being, you want to see the reaction of each person within that circle. Because if someone is going to be like, oh, or they're going to be doing this. And it's also your opportunity to step in to say, yeah, so basically, if someone has $30,000, it could be their savings, it could be their watch. It could be their savings, it could be their HELOC, it could be their retirement account. They invested $30,000 into the project and I pay them the interest. And if they're like, pause, and I realize there's no follow-up question, I'm like, think about this. When you go to a bank, we are told to get a loan, correct? They're like, yes. When you take the loan, the bank tell you how much money they'll loan you and what the interest rate is going to be, correct? Yes. You pay the bank a mortgage payment each month, correct? Yes. And if you default and you fall behind on the payment, what happens? You know what their response is? Oh, the bank is going to send me notices. I'm like, correct. And if you don't make up those payments, what happens? They're like, the bank take the house back. I'm like, correct. So if you lend me money, you are the bank. You see how I use real life example what persons are doing for them to fully understand the concept? That now makes them start asking me questions because now they're like, okay, I can relate to what she's saying. Let me see if this makes sense. And then they have follow-up questions. So I find using that whole bank explanation help a ton. And the only way I did that is because I kept pitching and screwing up my pitches. Even to this day, I would pitch and I screw up. And I'm like, I need to find a way to explain what I'm doing to people so they understand. And I got that idea because I was pitching to an investor, not an investor, like a regular person. And then they were like, wait, so you're basically doing the same thing as if you should go to a bank and get a loan. I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh. And I was like, wait, I can literally use that as an example. So this is why I mentioned you got to assess who you're talking to. If I go into a room with a bunch of fund managers, I'm not going to use that pitch because they understand investing. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to go straight numbers. And I always have a third party story. So I just covered a lot of these things right here that talks about know your audience, but you also need to know what age group is, what's the age group? Assess, like nothing is wrong. It's not discrimination or anything like that. You're just preparing yourself. You're setting yourself up to success. What's the age group? Am I surrounded by more older folks? Because if I'm surrounded by more older folks, my pitch is gonna talk about retirement savings. What does that mean? Hi, what do you do? Hey, so I'm basically again, listen to what I'm saying. Hey, so basically I'm a real estate investor, and what I do is that I purchase rental properties. Sometimes I renovate them and sell them, but from time to time I need additional capital. So I have investors who have funds sitting in their retirement account who lend me money for those projects, and I pay them interest on that loan. So I assess who I'm surrounded by and I touch their retirement because I'm basically planting the seeds to let them know that if they have their retirement account, they can invest with it. So this is why, again, you have to assess who are you talking to. I have a note here and I had virtual, but I'm going to touch on the virtual part of it. You can also raise money online by doing soft outreaches. So an example, I thought I would have it here, but when I do cold outreaches on Facebook, here's my pitch. Hey, my name is Kalisha. I see that we have similar interests from the group X. So wherever I find them, I'm mentioning where I found them. So a lot of us here are in sub 2. So I'm going to use this as an example. Hey, I see that we have similar interests and that you're in sub 2. You recently made a comment under someone's post that you're interested in lending on a project. Are you still looking for investment opportunities? That way, it doesn't come off as a scam to the person. If we've never talked, they know where I saw their post. I sometimes go a further step by screenshotting where they made that post, because a lot of times they do not remember. So I go in and I make that post. That way, it makes it easier for them to respond. Because if you go in and you're like, hey, I see that you're a PML, or heard that you're a PML, are you still lending? I'm not going to respond to you. Do you know how much persons are going to ask me if I'm a PML? I'm going to be like, not, I might respond, but I'm going to be like, I'm not going to make it a priority. You want them to open your message. Now, let's say we're not in sub 2, because I've raised money in groups where it's all retirement people. There's no communication. So what I do, I go through the group and I'm like, who is talking about financial freedom or retirement or financial planning? Who's talking about those things? Who's talking about setting up a self-directed IRA? Then what I do whenever I see a comment or a post in those groups, I'm going to text them. Hey, I saw your post in such and such group where you were talking about setting up a self-directed IRA account. If you're looking for references, here's a custodian that I use that you can use as well. So I do that by providing value, because I want to get the conversation going. Because if I give them my custodian information, they're going to start asking more questions. And it's also an opportunity for me to go in and raise money with them, raise money from them. So your conversation, like your intro, is very important. Don't think it's impossible for you to raise money just with only cold calling. So you can. Any questions so far? You guys got it? Come on.
Yes, this has been great information. Thank you, Felicia.
Okay, you're welcome. Oh, hi. All right, Melanie, I saw you nodding your head.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get it. I don't know if you answered that question that's in the chat there, but I had the same question. If it's harder or more difficult for folks who aren't in sub 2, like I'm assuming it's easier to get money from people who are not in in Gator, right?
Yeah.
It's just,
And I'm glad that's a great
like,
question because we're so in the space of sub two and Gator, you got to step outside of it because those persons, like, think about it. If you're an investor and you have money, you want to make fantastic return on your funds. You're going to want the best return. But so you got to go outside. And when to go outside, go to your local networking events. Like Arturo can tell you because he's in or paid group. Because I've raised so much money from people. Yes, I've raised money in sub two and Gator, but I've raised so much money outside of those groups. Why? Because I make it a point of my duty to go to these local events to connect with people. And when I connect with these people, I meet one person, I pitch. Again, I mess up my pitch. No matter what level I'm at, I mess up my pitch. But guess what? I get better. I repitch, right? And then I pitch with one person. When I pitch with one person, I tell them what I'm doing. They might not be an investor for my deal, but guess what? They're going to introduce me to somebody else. And a lot of times I am the only real estate investor in that group. You'll be surprised because a lot of people who are raising money are going only to real estate related events. So I'm a big fan of my local chamber of commerce. It's what, $600 for the year. And I go in and they provide all these networking events. And the networking events, I just go and I'm pitching. I'm just, every chance I get, I'm pitching. I'm going to find one lead. And I found more than one lead in those groups. You don't got to find like 10 people. That would be amazing. But imagine if you find one person. That one person, you want to provide a great experience, they're going to introduce you to someone else because guess what? They're like, oh my God, I met Melanie and Melanie provided me this great opportunity, this fantastic return. Tom, yes, Tom, I need to introduce you to Melanie. Guys, that's literally how it works. And I'm telling you this because these are things that happen to me, right? Your W-2 workers, right? If you have like someone who is a nurse or a software engineer or in tech or anything, it could be a barber, a hairstylist. When you pitch and when you say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and if their response is, man, I always wanted to get into real estate or get my real estate license, but I just don't have the time. I don't know anything. You start asking those questions. Okay, why do you want to get into real estate? We're building rapport. We're trying to figure out why, because if you figure out the why, then you know what exactly to pitch. So if they're like, yeah, I need another stream of income. Bam. If they tell you you need another stream of income, then you can say, oh, that's fantastic. I basically have an investor who lent me some money in a deal and I pay them X return in 8 months. Now you're able to go deeper. Now you're some of your brains, like if you're a deep thinker or overthinker like I am, you might be thinking, wait, Kalisha, but I've never done a deal. What deal am I gonna tell them? Here's the beauty of it. You should always have a third-party story. And the third-party story will always be the amount. You always have a number figure. And you put the number figure. So let's say we're going to choose $30,000. It's a middle ground. You don't know where they are. But you're planting the seed, letting them know that, hey, this is the amount that I work with. So even if they have 20, they know, oh, that can work. Because maybe they're thinking they need 100,000. But if you like say, hey, 30,000, they're like, oh, in their brain, they're like, okay. And if they're like, hey, sometimes we borrow the money for 8 months. Oh, kudos. Sometimes we borrow the money for 8 months, but from time to time, it could be 6 months or 12 months. Again, you're planting that seed to give them an idea of the time frame you want to borrow the money for without directly overwhelming them. Then you mention, oh, and the return can vary anywhere between 10 to 12%. You work out that figure in your head. So if 10 to 12% is about $4,000, $3,000, you just say that. And you stick to that third-party store all the time, whether you've done a deal or not. Because again, you're planting the seed, letting them know what the amount is. You're planting the seed, the time frame you'll need the money for. You're planting the seed, letting them know the expected return without directly asking them what. So sometimes my follow-up, when I say my pitch, and if their follow-up question is, wait, what do you mean? I'm going to be like, okay, here's an example. I had an investor who loaned me $30,000 for 8 months, and I pay them around 10 to 12% annualized. It varies. So that works out to about $3,000-$4,000 return in less than a year. That's it. And then they're like, oh, and then they start having follow-up questions. So you realize I'm not overwhelming them with private money lender or promissory note mortgage. We don't want to overwhelm them. We want to show them what is the benefit of being a lender, because there's a benefit to it. Get them intrigued, get them interested, and then you go into the technicalities with the documents and all those stuff. Sounds good? Any questions so far? Okay, perfect. Another thing when you can ask them as well is like if they mention that they want to grow their money or they're looking for safety. This is very common against persons who maybe like 35 and up, or if they're pulling money from their retirement account, then a lot of times they're looking for safety. So for these type of people, you're going to have to put in like stress a lot. Okay, if you invest, like you're not just going to give me your money. We're going to have documents. So if I die, and I always use that same term just to kind of lighten the mood. And I say, if I die, let's knock on wood. You have a piece of paper to go to the county to say, hey, I lent Kalisha money. She died. I need my money back. You might think, cause that's too harsh, but guess what? Whenever I use the I die portion, they always laugh. It lightens the mood. For some reason, I was like, yeah, so if you lend me money, God forbid I die, let me knock on wood. And I literally knocked on something so they hear it over the phone. And I was like, you have a piece of paper to go and say, I lend Kalisha money. I need my money back. And it's publicly recorded. There's public knowledge. And they're like, oh, interesting. I said a piece of paper. I did not say a mortgage or a promissory note. No. Because again, I'm going to assume that they do not know anything when it comes on to lending. So depending on the type of person that investor is, they will have follow-up questions. If they don't, then that's where you go in and you start pitching other things, because now you're at a point where you have a basic understanding of who they are and what they're looking to do. I saw Ellen taking notes. Ellen, are you good? Okay, that's good. Perfect. All right. Actually, let's see if I have time. Another thing to note is, well, you gotta assess like how much time do you have to pitch? And here's what I mean. If you're in, let's say, a group of people and it's 5 people and everyone's a round table and they're like, hey, just go ahead and introduce yourself. You just keep your pitch super short. But if you're doing like a presentation where it's going to be like 5 minutes of you introducing yourself, then you kind of go deeper. And here's an example. If we're doing a round table and you're like, introduce yourself, I'm like, all right, hi guys, my name is Kalisha Carter. I am based in Florida. And I'm going to say something. Let me go back and I'm going to tell you guys why. Hey guys, my name is Kalisha. I'm based in Tampa. I'm a Jamaican, so I love food. Okay. But basically what I do, I purchase rental properties across the US and I partner with people like you who want to get into real estate, but they don't want to deal with contractors or tenants. So they come to people like me. What I want you guys to observe. You see how I move my body and I move my hands and how I say it so friendly and I'm smiling and I lighten the mood and I tell you that I'm Jamaican and I love food. It makes you chuckle. It makes you more attentive to what I'm saying. And guess what? When I'm done pitching, you're going to remember that Jamaican girl because I said something to differentiate myself to the crowd. Your tone, your posture, It has so much to do with you raising money, your hand gestures. Don't talk as if you're racing and reading off a script. We're having a conversation. So that's how you should pitch yourself. Now, let's say you're doing a presentation and it's 5 to 10 minutes. Then that's where I will still start my pitch just how I did, but I will build on it. And in building on it, I'll say something like, so here's an example. I purchased this property in Florida and we renovated the property. And we had a lender, a traditional bank or traditional lender come in and they gave us majority of the project cost, but I was short. I needed more money. So then I partner with people like you who come in and give me the rest of the funds. And when I sell the property, that's when everyone who lent me the money will get their money back. Now you might be thinking, okay, what are the risks of investing? Oh, the risk is there's a 1% chance you might lose your money. I go all in. And they're like, oh, because no one is expecting me to tell you that. So I'm telling you, there's a 1% chance you're going to lose your money. But guess what? Here are some of the things that we usually put in place to mitigate some of those risks. Not saying it won't happen, but we got to put different things in place to make sure that there's a way for you to pull your money out. Some of those include that we're going to purchase that property as low as possible. We're going to make sure that we stay within budget. If we are late with paying you back, we're going to pay you a late fee per day. Because as much as we agree that in September 1, we're going to pay you back, things happen. And in real estate, nothing ever goes according to plan. So we respect your money. We respect your time. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to pay you a late fee per day. And we're going to put that in writing for us to agree on. And if the late fee per day comes and I don't pay it, guess what? I'm giving you the right to take ownership of this asset. And again, we're putting this in writing. So you guys picked up, I still have not used the word private money lender or PML. I'm having a conversation. And this is why when you understand that you're having a conversation, anyone can invest money with you. Even if you go on social media and you're making these pitches, this is how you pitch. This is how I raise money. I used to do this cold, strict, this script and it just didn't work. Because people are like, something's off. She's not authentic. I'm not getting to understand who she is. But when I start like breaking down, just beat myself, saying the or staggering with my speech, it makes it relatable. And when you're just so honest and break things down without being so technical, not using the real estate jargons, like it gives your investor who doesn't know anything about real estate peace of mind because they don't feel overwhelmed. And it makes them feel comfortable asking you follow-up questions. Because then if you start using all these jargons with them, they're interested, yes, but then they shut down and they just want to come off the phone or they just want to stop talking to you because they're so overwhelmed. Think about it. When someone's hard selling you something and you don't fully understand, you're like, oh, can I get off of this phone call? I want to be done. This is too much. Like my brain. Like people are like that. All right. So other things as well, when you're doing your pitch is that you want to tell your story. So you can highlight your experience, your credibility, and your track record. Now, if you're completely new, let me pause here and go through the chat. Make sure I haven't missed people not grace, not people not in the space. Oh, wow. I'm just seeing that. I'm sorry about the 10, 12%. Let's pause here. He said, is it harder or more difficult for folks who aren't in sub 2 nor Gator because what type of credibility? Bert, here's one thing you got to know. When you start connecting with people outside, like local investors who are lending money, if you use the word to them Gator, they're going to be like, what is that? Majority of the time. I know a lender in Tampa. All he does is he's just a private individual. He doesn't work with an institution. He only lends money for properties in Tampa. And I remember I was having a conversation with him and someone came up to him and he was like, hey, I'm in Gator. And the guy was like, what? He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, sub 2. He's like, what? This guy was clueless. And this guy has grown up in Tampa and has been a private money lender for over 20 years in Tampa, lending millions of dollars. And he doesn't know anything. So we just got to remember, just like with any mastermind, it's just the name of the mastermind. So your credibility has nothing to do with it. It helps if you're raising money from people within those groups. It really helps because people feel more comfortable. But you just got to remember, like with something like that, your credibility, your experience, your track record, it says a lot. If you've never done a deal as well before, find somebody that you can leverage off their experience to say something like, my team did this, my team did that. We sometimes overthink things because, especially if we've never done a deal before, and I totally get it. But if you can find, again, always have that third party story, have a location in mind. It could be where you're at, or if you want to say across the state or multiple states, have a location in your head at all times that you're going to use. Have a number in your head all the time that you're going to use. And if they're like, I need more info, hey, what's your contact info? What's your email? I'll send you more details later today. And then that gives you enough time to go find a previous deal from someone else and be like, hey, can I leverage your experience? Because I want to raise money for this. People don't care about that. We're just in our head sometimes. Right? This, and then as it relates to emphasizing the opportunity when pitching. Now, this is when you have a deal. And when I pitch a deal, I pitch it, the same way I shared before. So if, let's say I'm raising 200,000 for a project, right? Again, I assess, who am I talking to? And I'm going to use this perfect example from the guy that I met at a Chamber of Commerce event. When I met him, and it's the same guy where I tell you about the 8% annualized. And when he started asking questions, so do you have any investment opportunity, anything that I could invest in right now? I'm like, yeah, actually, we do have a property now. It's in Texas. It's a fix and flipper. I don't know the guy personally, but he has great track record about the projects that he has done. He's looking for $55,000 for 6 months, and the return is about 12%. It could go higher, it could go lower. The time for the project, it could go 2 months because it's a fix and flip. There are different things that can delay the project, but we'll put all those in writing. Will that be something that you'd be interested in? That's it. And that was the pitch with him. And he's like, yeah, that's something I'll be interested in. Okay, perfect. Let's do this. Let's set up a Zoom. I'll walk the deal, or a Zoom or a phone call. I'll walk through the pitch deck with you. I already know the pitch deck in my head. I already know the deal itself in my head. I only have the pitch deck for visual purposes. For someone who rather looks on something, that's where the pitch deck is for. So then when I get him on a Zoom, I started going through the pitch deck itself. And he's like, Kalisha, we don't need the pitch deck. What are the risks? How are you mitigating this risk? I'm like, here's what we're doing. We're accounting for delays in the project and days on market. What does that mean? And guys, I want you to listen what I'm saying. You see how I'm like, I kind of ask a question and I answer it because I'm assuming they're asking those questions in their head, but they don't want to ask me. So I'm saying, what are those things to mitigate those risks? Okay, here's what we're doing, right? We're going to assume that once we finish renovating this project, because of how the market is going right now, projects might sit longer than normal. So guess what? We're accounting for another 30 days for the project to be sit on market. And then by the time another buyer comes in, their finances may take another 30 to 45 days. That's 2 months extra. So we're accounting for 2 months. This is why we're taking the money for 8 months and not 6. We know we can pay you off in 6, but we just want to be safe by taking the money for 8 months. When you start breaking those things down, your investor will feel so much more comfortable because it's not like it will be a home run deal, but they're like, okay, this person and the team that they're working with, they're putting things in place to make sure I can get my money back. Your investor is thinking, if I lend you this money, how is this particular deal that I'm lending you money on is going to pay me back? I don't care if it's a great deal. Everyone has a great deal. I don't care if you have other projects that you're working on. Your goal is to show how that opportunity that you have will be able to pay your investor back. That's what you should always look on, whether they're in first lien, second lien, third lien. How can that deal pay your investor back? And that's what your pitch should be about. Of course, the return is amazing, but if you can lead the conversation with your pitch and show them how they'll get their money back, everything else will work out. Another thing is presenting the numbers. Some persons, especially again, if they're not in real estate, they can get overwhelmed with all the numbers. People get overwhelmed, which is why you gotta assess who are you talking to. I have an old landlord. My old landlord lent me 100,000. They don't know anything about real estate. When I showed them a pitch deck with all the numbers, he got so overwhelmed. He's like 60 something years old. He's like, Kalisha, this is too much. What does this mean? And I was like, hey, this is what it's basically saying. This is what I'm purchasing the property for. Here's a number right here. This is how much the renovation is going to cost right here. I'm adding all these together. This is my number. For the entire time I'm renovating this project, this is what it's going to cost me. This ARV, it's basically saying what the number is going to be worth, what the property is going to be worth when I'm ready to sell it. This is what my estimated profit will be. You see how I'm moving the screen and circling like that? That's exactly how I'm having a conversation with them. I'm not saying, oh, the purchase price is this, the rehab is this, the ARV, the project cost. I'm not running through it. I'm like, this is how much I'm buying the property for. This is how much it's going to cost me to renovate it. Break it down. If you are in real estate, how would you want someone to break things down for you to understand? Another thing is handling objection. This is very, very common when it comes on to pitching. It's gonna happen, and sometimes people have the weirdest objections and you don't have the answer to it. You're not gonna have the answer to everything, but your response is gonna be like, hey, I'm not sure, or I think I have the answer to it, but let me double check something and get back to you. That's always how I handle objections when I'm pitching. Another thing could be I think a objection that I had was, I want to find a very odd one. And it was, I'm just going to use the one with late payment. And it was like, Kalisha, what if you die? Do you have a partner? Who else can take over the property? I'm like, we can set it up where if you want to take it over, we'll put it in writing that you take the property over after a certain time. He's like, you can do that. I'm like, yes, we are having an agreement. It's you lending me the money. Everything is negotiable. We're not working with an institution here. And we put it in writing. But you're gonna have some weird objection. Like weird. Like, trust me. Like, I wish I made a note of some weird objection that I got. And I just sometimes I can't, I'm like, this is the dumbest objection ever. But I was like, you know what, Kalisha, that's not the response. Just say, hey, let me get back to you with this one. Simply, right? How do you get better at pitching? You practice in the mirror. Sergio, you have a question? I think you're.
Yes, I do. Quick, what would you say your top 5 objections would be if you have a guess? I know you get a lot of weird ones. What would you say your top maybe 3 to 5 would be?
What if the loan is late? That's always the big one. What things do I have in place? And my answer to that would be, we'll give the borrower a late fee, a grace period, like let's say 3 to 5 days grace period. After that, there'll be a late fee per day of $50 or $100, depend on the loan amount per day. And then after 30 days, we may do a loan extension fee because things happen. It just depends on that situation. What is it that you want? And this is how I'm explaining it to them. Another objection would be, Kalisha, what if you die? How do I get my money back? Literally. And we put that in place as well. Kalisha, like, I'm in second lien position. What happens if something happens, the house burns down, and I can't get my money out? I'm like, well, this is why if it's a fix and flip, as the borrower, they need to add you as a additional insured on their insurance policy. So that way, if the property burns down and there's a payout, you're listed and can get your money back. Another thing is, like, you see this number that I mentioned, the spread, right? And our margin. And I'm just doing this because that's how I'm explaining to them. You see this margin and that spread. I want to make sure I still have enough room. So if there's any delay or if I have to sell the property way lower than I anticipated, my profit will take a hit and not you. So I was like, this is why a profit has to have $50,000 or more. So one of my projects in general, like the profit needs to be $35,000 or more after all our project costs. Because if anything should goes down, it's our profit that would take a hit first. If a profit margin is $12,000, that deal is not worth it. Because if something happens, that's like wipe out so easily. So those are some of the things that I would share as well. Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with every information that is shared, like you guys have to practice nonstop. Like, and you got to remember that you're gonna screw up even at an event. Like I've been at networking events and I introduced myself and I stumbled. I paused and I'm like, wait, Kalisha, what did you just do? Like that was horrible. But guess what? I picked myself up and I was like, all right, the next person, fix this. You just got to keep going because like the more you do it is the more you know how to tweak your pitch and add your flavor to it. That's all what it's about. So you got to practice, like be so intentional that whenever a person asks you now, what do you do? It's your pitch that comes out. Here's the downsides of it. You're going to do it so much where every time you don't know how to shut your brain off. To be like, okay, this is not a real estate transaction. This is not a transaction. You're building a relationship. Like, stop. But that's when your brain becomes so in tune with like automatic, like this is gonna be the response. But you gotta practice. You gotta make it a habit. And then if you're in the group as well, find an accountability partner. Like you cannot do this on your own. Find somebody who you can be like, hey, who's in here in the group on Skool? I just want to practice my pitch. You know, like let's just check in. Like, hey, how's it going? I just want to practice my pitch. Let me know what you think. What do I need to fix? Like, freaking practice. Like, that's gonna be the main thing because at the end of the day, practice makes perfect. And the more you grow and the more you're gonna realize, guys, and this is something that I've learned, how I'm pitching now, when I get to the point of raising, when I'm raising now to like, let's say pitching to another fund manager, my pitch is completely different, but I'm still learning how to tweak my pitch to attract more fund managers, family offices, because it's completely different. It's not a quick pitch, but again, you're always learning. I'm always practicing, hearing how are other persons pitching, because I can take how someone else is pitching, add my flavor to it, and pitch, right? All right. So main takeaways that you guys got to remember to build rapport and trust with your lenders. Your confidence and your tone and your body language with pitching, it is so, so crucial, you guys. I'm a hand gesture type of person, so I talk with my hands. But if you just stand like this and you hold down your posture, especially if you're standing up, I'm sorry, I'm sitting down. But if you're like standing up at an event and your posture is like this and you look like so down, it's like, yeah, you're not confident. Like you got to stand straight, your chest out, and you got to be confident whether you're going to mess up or not. But people are going to see it and I'm like, you're not even confident. Why would I want to lend you my money? Like, you ever hear that thing, fake it till you make it? You're going to fake it till you make it when pitching. But feel free, like just you're having normal conversation with people, okay? And here I mentioned the storytelling portion of it to engage. So here I mentioned like a third-party story. A recent deal we had, someone invested $50,000 for 8 months. Expected return is 12% annualized, which is around $4,000. I always have a third-party story in my head every single time. Now, one lesson one takeaway with pitching from everything that I just said. What do we got? And I'm going to run through to make sure I have question. I didn't miss anyone's question. Come on, there has to be one takeaway.
Confidence.
Love it.
I want to pitch to family offices now.
Girl, you need to get in the black card. You
I
need
know.
it. You
I gotta talk to
need
you.
it. Like it's a whole different ballgame pitching the family offices.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, we should talk. We should talk. Yeah, they're the whales. They're the one controlling all the money. All right, perfect.
Yep.
Oh, Black Card is another mastermind group, and it's for persons who are looking to start a fund. So it's still like raising money. So when you guys get to a point where you just want to be able to control all the funds and not raise money as a deal by deal basis, doing that fund where you're pooling the money together, it's way better. Because with SEC, you don't want to be pooling people's money and you don't have a fund, you're violating a lot of stuff. So you do a fund. Like you have a hedge fund, you guys hear about that all the time. Hedge fund managers, they're literally all just pooling money and buying bigger things. That's it. It's like better opportunities. You have all the money in one place and you can deploy it whenever you want. All right, what questions you guys have? One more takeaway. I need two more people. What takeaways that you guys have?
Just talk in regular terms, refer to everything as a piece of paper.
That's it. That's the beauty of it. Love it. One more. Come on. Don't be shy. Be yourself. That's it. You gotta be yourself. People want to relate to you. Like, don't hide it, guys. Like, that's why a lot of investors invest with me because I'm myself and I tell it how it is. I don't care. Like, I'm like, hey, there's a 1% chance that you're gonna lose your money. Are you okay with that? And they're like, Kalisha, no. I'm like, yeah, well, don't lend me your money because you're gonna drive me insane if you do that. I literally tell them that. I'm like, if you are not sure, you're gonna drive me insane and make my life a living hell. So how about we skip this deal and until you're comfortable, then you invest in another deal. People respect that.
I like the third party story. I mean, I actually do that myself because I want to see their risk level and see what they think of that deal. Like, oh, that's great, or no, that's too low. I get
Yeah,
25% stock market. So that way you can see what kind of deals to send them.
that's it. That is
Yep.
exactly it. Because the same guy I met at Chamber, I thought like 12%. He just got a 12% deal. I told him I was gonna give him 8%. And he got on my email list and saw $55,000 for 12%. And he was like, I want that.
Yeah.
Literally. And he was so ready because he was taking a trip. He's like, Kalisha, I just met you, but you explained so much thing to me. You are so real. I'll send you the money so you can fund that deal because I'll be out of the country. And I was like, don't worry about it. You don't have to send me the money. We're gonna get this done before your trip. And literally,
Nice.
I'm on a cruise and the guy, he sent me a WhatsApp. He's like, man, like my wife was so scared and she felt so comfortable going through this.
Nice.
And that you just need them to do one deal.
Yep.
One and you'll be good. All right. So what I'll do is I think yes, someone asked if I'll share this template. Yes. So you guys will get this. I'll drop it in Skool in the classroom for resources so you guys will find it. And if you haven't booked a one-on-one session with me as yet, I'm doing one-on-one sessions as well, like a free 15-minute call. So I'll drop the link in the chat. And if you haven't as well, join our community. We have persons here who are in our community. We do like 2 calls. Arturo is here. He's the only person I can see right now. But he's also in our elite capital raisers, and in there we talk about these things. We have accountability like twice a week, and persons have access to me, help me raise money, be a part of my deals. Like now, Arturo, we're about to do our first deal together. So that's amazing.
Yes. Yes.
So it's an opportunity. And what I do is any projects I'm raising capital for, I provide persons within that group to, hey, here's my deck. Here, use my resources, use my credibility, leverage off of it, go raise money, because that's how you get better at raising money is doing it. It's just practicing doing it. You're not going to raise money for every single deal. It can be discouraging. I'm telling you, the deal can be so good, but you don't raise money for it. It's a part of the game. And then there's gonna be another time when you have 3, 4 deals and you raise money for all of it. You're like, oh shit, I'm confident again. It happens, but it makes you become better at mastering that craft because once you can raise money, like if you spend the time and really commit to doing it, you're untouchable. All right. Okay, damn.